Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Gonitai ki jai, Kishore Kishori ki jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Marani ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we're continuing with the chapter entitled Krishna Chastises the Serpent Kaliya. And we will be doing text 49 and text 50. Text 49 is on the board. It's the text with a purport, and text 50 does not have a purport. So text 49, which we will chant responsibly. Tvam hiyasya janmasiti samyaman vibho gunair aniho krita kala shakti drik tatat svabhavan pratibodayan sataham Samikshayamukha vihara ihashe Tvam hiyasya janmasiti samyaman vibho Gunair aniho kritakala shakti drik Tatat svabhavan pratibodayan sataham Samikshaya mukha vihara ihashe Tvam hiyasya janma siti samyaman vibho Gunair aniho kritakala shakti drik Tatat svabhavan pratibodayan sataham Samikshaya mukha vihara ihase. Please chant. Swamiyasya janmasiti samyaman vibho Gunairaniyo kritakala shakti drik Tatat svabhavan pratibodayan sataham Samikshayamo Gavihara Ihase Swamhiyasya Janmasiti Samyamandibo Gunaid Aniho Kritsakala Shakti Drik Tatat Swapavan Pratibodayan Sataha Samikshayamo Gavihara Ihase Swamhiyasya Janmasiti Samyamandibo Gunaraniho Kritsakala Shakti Drik Tatat Swapavan Pratibodayan Sataha Samikshayamo Gavihara Ihase. Thank you. So, the word for word translation for text 49. Tvam, you. He, indeed. Te, of you. Asya, of this universe. Janmasiti, Samyaman, the creation, maintenance, and destruction. Vipa, O Almighty Lord. Gunai, by the modes of nature. Aniha, although uninvolved in any material endeavor. Akrita, beginningless. Kala Shakti, of the potency of time. Drik, the holder. Tat, of each of the modes. Svabhavan, the distinctive characteristics. Pratibodayan, awakening. Suna, now. Abitum, to protect. Satam, of the saintly devotees. Sataha, which already present in their dormant state. Samakshaya, by your glances. Amoga, Vihara, whose playful activities are impeccable. Ihase, you act. And the translation for text 49 is as follows. O Almighty Lord, although you have no reason to become involved in material activity, still you act through your external potency of time to arrange for the creation, maintenance, and destruction of this universe. You do this by awakening the distinct functions of each of the modes of nature, which, before the creation, lie dormant. Simply by your glance, you perfectly execute all these activities of cosmic control in a sporting mood. And this is the purport by disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Skeptics may question why the Supreme Lord has created the material world, which is full of birth, maintenance, and death. Here, the Nagapatnis point out that the Lord's pastimes are amoga, beyond any discrepancy. Shri Krishna actually desires that all conditioned souls live with him in his eternal kingdom, but those forgetful souls who are inimical to their loving relationship with God must go to the material world and be subjected to the conditions of time. The fortunate conditioned souls are startled into remembrance of their actual position as loving servants of the Lord, and from within the heart, the Lord then encourages them to come back home, back to Godhead, where time is conspicuous by its absence, and where eternal blissful existence supersedes the dramatic but disturbing functions of cosmic creation and annihilation. And then text 50 is as follows. Tasyaiva te mustanavastri lokyam shanta ashanta utamudha yonayaha shanta priyastehi atu pavitum satam status chate dharma paripashye hataha. And the translation for text 50 is as follows. Therefore, all material bodies throughout the three worlds, those that are peaceful in the mode of goodness, those that are agitated in the mode of passion, and those that are foolish in the mode of ignorance, all are your creations. Still, those living entities whose bodies are in the mode of goodness are especially dear to you, and it is to maintain them and protect their religious principles that you are now present on the earth. So they're both huge mouthfuls. So let's see. Om Gyana Timirandasya Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Rampada Swami Dinamine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Dinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Every young person that has sat on the Vyasa-san in the last couple of days has asked for blessings. I feel the same way today. This is two huge mouthfuls of verses. So I'm going to do my very best to break it down as best I can. So in looking at Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on the verses, he puts it that Krishna is actually posing a question to the Nagapatnis. So here we're hearing the Nagapatnis appealing to Lord Krishna on behalf of their husband, the Kaliya Serpent, but the way Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur presents it is that Krishna from within their heart is actually posing a question to them. So this is how Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur puts the question that Krishna is posing to them from within the heart. We're just hearing them speaking. So this is the question. The first question Krishna is asking them from within the heart is, what is the purpose in creating this universe, giving it life and transformation? So it's a very big question. So, and the Nagapatnis, they have no difficulty in answering this question. It's a huge question. So they answer it this way. They say, this is their words, and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, of course, he has insight into the thought process of Krishna and the innermost feelings of his, I guess, very close devotees. So the Nagapatnis, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, puts across their thoughts. Simply by glancing upon the material nature, after the end of the previous kalpa, you wake up the jivas, resting in the pradhan, to their previous nature, and then proceed with creation, maintenance and destruction, through the three modes of nature, rajas, sattva, and tamas. Though you activate the modes of nature, you are not involved with any material endeavor. All this is brought about through your eternal potency of time, just by your glance. You execute all these activities in a playful mood. Now, it's very difficult to reconcile that in two sentences, the Nagapatnis have pointed to the significance of the glance of Krishna. I mean, not only has he woken up every single soul that's residing in a dormant state within the body of Mahavishnu, but he's also, by his glance, he's also awakened the way of being of each of those entities. So all those jivas that have now been awakened by Krishna's glance from their dormant state after the destruction that took place, so from the previous kalpa, he's also activated their way of being, so be they more in goodness, passion, ignorance, or the mix, he's awakened that as well. So very powerful glance, if one thinks how many living entities there are. So, and he's done it in a playful mood. So, rather extraordinary. One has to be extremely confident and comfortable with something to be able to be playful about it. I mean, I know that when I'm executing anything in devotional life, I do it with great gravity. But this is not Krishna. He's playful in how he executes extraordinary things, even awakening the creation. So, so this is the Nagapatnis responding to Krishna's question of why is this universe given life and transformation. So they paint the picture of what happens. So the significance is Krishna's glance and his very playful mood. And now, the main point is that material activities, they are caused by this mahatattva being agitated. So that's what Krishna's glance is doing. He starts the agitation which begins the creation. And this is given in Srimad Bhagavatam in the second canto, in the 5th chapter, the 23rd verse. So another way of saying this is that this material creation is more or less due to the development of the mode of passion. There has to be passion, agitation, because that's what the mode of passion is. There's agitation. So it's the development of the mode of passion that's allowing for material creation to take place. Now, it's the will of the Supreme Lord which agitates the mahatattva. So he desires it. And so he desires this principle of creation. So everything begins with desire, and then something manifests. So he desires, the powerful glance, agitation happens, and then the mode of passion kicks in, which allows for development to take place. So this mode of passion, so passion means it's a way of being. So all these elements, these material elements are getting agitated, and just because the mode of passion has got generated, in due course of time, the material activities of different kinds, they become prominent. So you can see there's a logical progression. And all material creation by living entities, it also gets initiated. And this is all because of the mode of passion. So, like, I mean, this is a very simple example, but when I was in the suburbs in Naperville, one day a person was commenting to me, said, oh, see this building. And the building, looked very solid. It had what appeared to be a brick facade and windows and stores beneath. I said, oh, it took them just a couple of weeks to put it up. So this requires the mode of passion, to throw something together, bricks and windows, and structure it and put glass. I mean, there's got to be passion and energy to move things, place things. Yeah. And these kind of activities, whether it's building a building or actually waking up all the living entities to start carrying on their particular activities from previous lifetimes, or the previous lifetime, the previous kalpa. All these activities are done in the name of advancement. Like persons feel they're moving forward, they're advancing, if they're passionately creating something on a material level. I mean, you see it, Chicago's an unusual city because most of the buildings, there was a great fire, I think in 1919, and a lot of the city got destroyed. And if you look around, predominantly the buildings are from the 1920s and 1930s, and sort of inserted here and there something that was built in the 50s or 60s or 70s, but predominantly the 20s and 30s. And no doubt because of that huge fire, there's kind of a certain respect for the old buildings. So where I'm living, almost the blocks have buildings that are national landmarks because they haven't been touched or tampered with or destroyed. So the mode of passion is not operating there. There's a kind of respect for what was achieved through some passion, but it's been respectfully dealt with and maintained nicely, like in the building that I reside in. There's a board and they decide that, this year we're going to actually spend money from there's a certain amount that all the residents have to give. So from that pool of money, this year we're going to attend to the brickwork, or this year we're going to attend to the gardens. There's always some maintenance involved. But that initial building that took place after the 1919 fire, it was no doubt, the idea of advancing. You're going to put up many structures. So actually, this kind of creating material activities, it has an effect on living entities. And that is that passion does that. It bewilders memory and intelligence. They forget their actual spiritual identity. This is what actually happens. The spiritual nature is forgotten. So there's much more chance, if everything's peaceful and the mode of passion isn't being agitated, that persons will attend to their spiritual nature. Like I find living in a very peaceful building that's been very nicely maintained is very conducive to doing my worship on a daily basis, feeling very peaceful, doing what I have to do in terms of my spiritual activities. So it's all part of the environment being a certain way. But this is just to reiterate this point of how the mode of passion agitates everything in the material creation, and living entities start to perform their material activities at the same time, forgetting their spiritual identity. Now, if we return to the statement of the Nagapatnis, they say that the Lord isn't involved in any material effort. So it means Krishna's not, getting agitated or getting into the mode of passion. So one wonders, how does this work? Because there seems to be creation going on, and it's by his glance, but he doesn't have any passion, or there isn't a material effort on the part of Krishna, even though he's executing these activities. So the Nagapatnis are pointing to this important point. And looking to Lord Brahma, he gives an explanation of why this is this way, and he's explaining to Narada. So this is Lord Brahma, how he explains it, that Krishna is, bringing about all this agitation, all these material activities, but he himself, he's not putting in any material effort. So this is the explanation given by Lord Brahma. The Supreme Lord is pure spiritual form, transcendental to all material qualities. Yet, for the sake of creation of the material world and its maintenance and its annihilation, he accepts through his external energy the material modes of nature called goodness, passion, and ignorance. So there's an external energy that starts functioning, and I'm going to read that. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 3rd chapter, where Lord Brahma is explaining to Narada how it is that Lord Krishna actually isn't involved, even though all this material activity is taking place. So the explanation that's given, and is, as I've read it, I'm going to read the Sanskrit too. Sattvam rajas tama iti nirgunasya gunastraya stiti sarga nirodeshu krita maya vibhu. So Krishna has an external energy that operates. So he remains kind of separate from it, but the external energy is operating. So he can free his external energy to take care of everything, but it's under his control. So in this way, it's understood that he's not actually directly involved in the material activities. So you could say that Lord Krishna is the master of the external energy, which is manifesting or is visible in these three ways of being good, passionate, or ignorant. And he himself is never affected by this bewildering influence, since he's the controller of that material energy. And this is, of course, in contrast to all the jivas, the individual spirit souls, because they're susceptible to be influenced by the modes of nature. And we see this, particularly if you start taking to devotional life, and you start becoming aware of how the modes of nature are operating. So I remember some devotee made a mistake very early on in my devotional life and of asking me to cook a Rajberg offering, and I was newly in the temple. The person used very poor judgment. I mean, giving a new person who's coming to the temple, please cook the Rajberg offering. And what I found being put in that situation was that my mind was creating the vegetable dish, rolling the puris, but actually I wasn't getting anything done. So I was spreading myself out between trying to do three things, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, because the mind is, too much in the mode of passion. It couldn't actually focus and proceed one thing at a time, or, focus on first let me make the vegetable dish, then let me attend to the rolling the puris. So the result of that was that I had a dish that was this much of a sak and about 30 puris. I thought, oh, I can't do much better than. So that's a mind in the mode of passion. You can't order activities carefully. So, so the point is that the living entities, they get influenced by the modes of nature. And even though originally they're one in quality with the Supreme Lord, means that they become subordinate to or controlled by that material energy, that external energy that Lord Krishna is putting out. So, because they're not, it's like anything, if you're not controlling something, you're sort of at the mercy of whatever is happening. Yeah. I mean, here's an example, a very graphic one. In that very huge event that happened in New York on at the World Trade Center when two planes crashed into the World Trade towers or building. One could see that, I mean, I was traveling, I used to travel from New Jersey to New York, and arriving there at the time when the devastation had happened, one could see that there's a kind of being completely at the mercy of the modes. You would see persons looking completely confused, running, not knowing what's happening. I mean, you didn't see the mode of goodness operating, that somebody was standing still, trying to assess the situation. Rather, it was disturbance with the destruction and the debris. So it's that kind of thing. One becomes at the mercy of what the situation is. So whatever the external material energy is happening, in that case there was a lot of destruction. So immediately persons were sort of plunged into some sort of passion or ignorance at the mercy of the situation. Now here, the Nagapatnis, they're stating something expressed also by Lord Brahma. And so these things are technical. It's a little bit difficult subject matter, so I'm trying to sort of highlight it a little bit with practical examples. So this is the expression that comes by the Nagapatnis. After the incarnation of the first Purusha, Karadakshai Vishnu, the Mahatattva, or the principle of material creation, takes place. And then time is manifested, and in course of time, the three qualities of nature appear. Nature means the three qualitative appearances. They transform into activities. So, again, these qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance, they translate into how action is performed. So at that September 11 event with all this destruction, I mean, people are running helter-skelter because passion is driving them, must escape from debris, must escape from some potential fire, must escape from some disaster. Some persons are even throwing themselves out of high floors in the World Trade Center as some interior stairways collapsing. Passion impels them to throw themselves out of the window. I mean, how logical is that? You're going to save yourself by throwing yourself out of a window. Passion or ignorance. So, this quality of being omnipotent, though, of having unlimited power or authority on the part of Lord Krishna, means that the material creation evolves. So it's under his control. So everything is evolving at the right pace, at the right time, in the right order. And there's also kind of reactions that are happening one after the other. So everything's very controlled. So nothing like that devastation that I've just described. Everything's controlled. And because the Lord is so powerful, at the same time, when he chooses to withdraw the whole material creation, the same kind of thing happens. Everything's very ordered and slowly withdrawn. It's sort of wound up is the term that's used. It's being collected in a nice ordered manner, wound up. And Krishna explains this. I mean, this is a very, it's very difficult to comprehend with our minds, this concept. I mean, one hears it and digests it to some degree, but this is how Krishna explains it, and this is Bhagavad Gita. O son of Kunti, at the end of the millennium, all material manifestations enter into my nature, and at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I create again. So Krishna puts it very simply, like it's completely under his control, so he can present it like that. Does it, and then withdraws it. So completely under his control. That's from Bhagavad Gita 9:7. Now, time is considered synonymous with nature. So this can be seen as the first cause of creation. Time takes place, like there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And different activities take place in the material world, and they become visible because time is the cause of the creation. So you can see how things take shape. There's formation, development, dissolution. And activities on the part of the individual spirit soul, they're taken up by natural instinct. That's the description. There's a natural instinct already from the karma of the previous lifetimes. There's a natural instinct of what one does. Like, I found this very fascinating because I remember reading a quote somewhere. Somebody was saying that one just naturally falls into one's occupation. And I thought about this and thought it's true. Somehow one finds oneself performing certain activities. Like I recall, as a university student, I was always walking around with books. I do the same thing now. Nothing has changed. I mean, why one is impelled to study or why one is impelled to read, I mean, in my case, I do not know, but those are the activities. And if I look back, I was doing exactly the same thing. Even when I was very small, I was always reading. So, it's a natural instinct, the activities that one does. So all different living entities, they have this natural instinct. That's how it's described. So as a result of the natural instinct, there's various products or byproducts of one's nature. So in my case, it may be classes. It's a product as a result of the reading. And in the case of somebody who's maybe a very passionate person, it might be the construction of what's now a huge park in the place where the two World Trade Center towers used to be. So somebody in the mode of passion, created a big open space that's paved and some plaques. So a different kind of personality, different instinct. For somebody, it was very natural to, put paving down on the ground. Yeah. But every one of these instincts, they're due to the Supreme Lord. This natural instinct that each living entity has. So, I dealt with one part of what the Nagapatnis are putting across. Here's the second question that's internally. So, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur puts it this way. There's a second question that Krishna is asking them from within the heart. Now, we're not reading that in the Bhagavatam, but we're just hearing what they say. But this is the question that was asked by Krishna of the Nagapatnis. So we heard the first question, here's the second one. What is the intention of your praises? So Krishna's asking them, well, what are you intending to do with praising me? So we're not hearing the question, but here's the Nagapatni's response. So there's praise here, and we come to hear why. So Krishna's asked that question from within the heart, and they're responding. So we're reading their response. So this is Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur paraphrasing their response. You are the creator, they're addressing Krishna. You are the creator of all the material bodies throughout the universe. At the time of creation, you awaken the bad qualities within the non-devotees. So how is it possible for Kaliya to give up his cruel nature on his own? Now we're getting to what their intention is. They're answering Krishna's question. Though all the bodies in the universe are created by you, we see that the living entities who take to devotion are dear to you. You are present on earth to maintain your devotees and help them uplift their religious principles. So that was the Nagapatni's response to Krishna's question. What's the intention of your praising me? So they very intelligently point out, Krishna, you've awakened this natural instinct in all living entities at the time of creation. So it means you also awakened the natural instinct of Kaliya. And his instinct is, not that of a devotee. It's actually, you could say, a cruel nature. But you've awoken that. So at the time of creation, you woke up the natural instinct of every living entity, including the cruel nature of Kaliya. So this is their logic. And they make a generalization, all the bodies in the universe are created by you. So, and it means that he also created the cruel nature of Kaliya, and he also worked that up at the time of creation. This is what they're saying. But they acknowledge that actually Krishna is present because he is present in this particular pastime directly with them. You're present on earth to maintain your devotees. So they understand that he's particularly looking to help up devotees, those are devoted to him, to uphold their religious principles. So he's always looking how to protect devotees so that they can maintain their religious principles, because that's what is dear to persons in the mode of goodness, upholding religious principles. So, now in terms of Krishna being the creator of all the material bodies in the universe, he himself bears this out, his role in creation. And this is in Bhagavad Gita, in the 18th chapter. I am the goal, the sustainer, the master, the witness, the abode, and the refuge, and the most dear friend. I am the creation and the annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place, and the eternal seed. Quite a lot. So Srila Prabhupada, he explains that approaching the energy of Krishna is approaching Krishna in a very indirect way. The direct way is a preferable way. So that direct way, that's exemplified by how the Nagapatnis are approaching Krishna. They have an understanding that everything exists on Krishna's energy, but that Krishna is situated within everyone's heart as the supreme witness. They understand this. Hence, his awakening the qualities present within the non-devotees is because he's present within the heart. He's witnessed all their activities. So he can easily awaken their nature. He already knows what they're up to, what they've done. So giving up bad qualities is something answered by the Nagapatnis. one can take shelter of Krishna, either for protection or for annihilation of one's distress. So both they've done this. They've taken shelter of Krishna for protection, and Kaliya has taken shelter of Krishna to annihilate his distress. He wanted his distress to end, and finally, he's beaten into submission. Because that's what the title is, subduing Kaliya. He got subdued, like his cruel nature got subdued. So, because Krishna is the source of our generation, he's the Supreme Father, and so nobody can be a better friend than he can be. And finally, in answer to this internal question from Krishna that came to the Nagapatnis of what's the intention of your praises, they actually desire to have Kaliya pardoned. That's what their desire is. And look how intelligently they go about asking for his pardon. Now, this is somebody with a cruel nature. So they've pointed out this whole picture of creation. Now, Krishna has awakened even the cruel nature of somebody. So not only the nature of regular persons, but even a very cruel being. Krishna's awakened that, their natural instinct. So now they want him to be pardoned. So this is their logic. Listen to their logic. It's so interesting. His actions cannot be considered offensive because that is his very nature. So how can you, who are eternally liberated, the ocean of mercy and full of all opulences, deny him your mercy? You always treat everyone equally, and all your acts convey auspiciousness. Therefore, please, quickly show your mercy to our afflicted husband. It does not befit you to kill such a lowly living entity. Now, isn't it interesting how they've actually come to this final point, answering Krishna's question of what the intention was of all their praises? They actually are saying that Krishna's awakened this natural instinct, this cruel instinct on the part of their serpent husband, just in the same way that he's awakened the natural instinct of every living entity at the end of when he starts creation again from the previous kalpa, and he begins creation again. So, because he's awakened that cruel nature, why would he actually not want to pardon such a being? Because that being doesn't have control over his nature. So, because he's so auspicious, everything he does is so auspicious, why would he even bother to kill such a lowly entity? This is their logic. So we'll wait to see how Krishna responds. So this is what I was able to get from these two huge mouthfuls and something of the Nagapatni's logic and how they went about really looking for pardon for their husband. So if there's any thought on this topic?
Hare Krishna, thank you for your class. Where did I write that down? All right, cool. Your last point you were making, you made so many wonderful points, so I can't really remember them all because they're all wonderful. But I'll try to narrow it down to your last point that I thought was an interesting point. And maybe you could expand on some of these points. You were mentioning that Kaliya had no control. This living entity obviously has no control over his nature. And I'll try to relate this to one of my favorite pastimes too, because we see in our own life it's very easy for us to be self-controlled when someone is honoring us. When someone is honoring us, glorifying us. But it's much more difficult to be in control when somebody is dishonoring us. So we're actually not dependent on our own character and qualities for self-control. We're dependent on somebody else's praise. So, and one of my favorite pastimes regarding this verse about maintenance, creation, maintenance, and destruction. Every time I hear that pastime, it reminds me of chapter 89 of Krsna book. It describes the Guna avatars. There was a debate of who's the supreme controller in the universe. Is it Brahma? Is it Shiva, or is it Vishnu? And Brahma's the creator, Shiva's the destroyer, and Vishnu's the maintainer. And we see in our own life that creating our relationships, easy. Destroying our relationships, even easier. Maintaining our relationships, that's the hard part. In this pastime, Vishnu teaches us how to maintain our relationships. They first of all got a sage named Brigamuni to test all three of them to see who was actually self-controlled. He first tested Lord Brahma by ignoring him. And generally speaking, when somebody ignores us, we lose all self-control. Then he tested Shiva. He insulted him. He increased the disrespect. He insulted Shiva. And Shiva, he became so infuriated. Of course, these are all great Vaishnavas. It's just meant to show us how we're actually not in control. So Shiva took up his trident and he was going to kill Brigamuni, but Parvati prevented him from doing so. So then Brigamuni then tested Lord Vishnu to see if he's the supreme controller. So then he committed the greatest offense of them all against Lord Vishnu. He killed while Lord Vishnu was lying on the lap of his wife, Lakshmi. Brigamuni walked up to Vishnu and kicked him in his chest. And Vishnu did something what we wouldn't do. He started glorifying Brigamuni. He says, "My dear Brigamuni, I hope my heart, thunder like chest, didn't hurt your soft lotus feet. Great sages like you can purify even in places of pilgrimage. Please forgive me for not properly receiving you when you came into my home. How may I serve you?" This reaction actually brought tears to Brigamuni's eyes, and he declared, "Vishnu, you are the supreme controller." Why? Because although Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are known all over the universe as great controllers, he was actually seeing that they were being controlled. Were they being controlled by? Anger and rage. Whereas Lord Vishnu is not only the controller of anger and rage, he's the controller of lust, anger, greed. In the material world, we become so proud, I'm in control, but as soon as a beautiful girl walks by, she's in control. She's the supreme personality of Godhead, like Mohini Murti. So we're controlled at every step of life. And one last point I want to mention maybe regarding this, maintaining our relationships. Well, actually, a couple of more points. In this pastime, also of Vishnu, he describes how we can become PhDs, pretty humble devotees. And we see that when a child goes to the hospital, he screams at the doctor, he kicks the doctor, he insults the doctor. Oh, and like I said, like Brigu did to Vishnu, he kissed the doctors. So many things, but I've never seen a doctor retaliate against a child. In much the same way in this pastime describes how we become PhDs. How can we forgive people who are diseased with pride, envy, and vengeance? We can also be humble. We also have the same disease. So there's a nice quote that says, if you change the way you look at things, then the things you look at change. So this is not actually a jerk. He's diseased with the pride, like all of us. So in that way, we could decrease our animosity towards anyone, really. And so one of my last points regarding relationships, and maybe you could expand on, is something that really causes a lot of, we see in the Bhagavatam that causes a lot of, it's something very petty, actually. There's one quote by Benjamin Franklin. He says, it takes many good deeds to build a good reputation, and only one bad deed to ruin it. Now, you can apply this quote to relationships. It takes many agreements to build a good relationship, and only one disagreement to ruin it. And we see this in the life of Prahlad Maharaj. He grew up with his father. They had many agreements, but one disagreement. What was the disagreement? I like Vishnu and Vaishnavas, and we see that, relationships break. If you're friends with my enemy, then you're also my enemy. But what about all the agreements we had over the years? Forget it. Same with Sati and Daksha. It was his daughter, and they had so many agreements throughout their whole life. But what was the one agreement? She loved Lord Shiva, or or anything. So many petty things. So my question is that even if we want to maintain our relationships, like Prahlad wanted to maintain his relationship with Hiranyakashipu, Sati wanted to maintain her relationship with Daksha, and so many things. Or Daksha wanted to maintain his relationship with his 11,000 sons when Narada Muni converted them to brahmacharis. So we see in the material world, there's so many. Um, uh, my question is how can we give up? How can we maintain our own, or how should I say? How can we give up the illusion that we're in control? And that's one question. And the second question is that um, sometimes we agree with others just so that we can maintain our relationships. But at the same time, we're feeling like, oh, this is preventing me from spiritually growing, that I'm agreeing with you. But so how can somebody, what should a person do who's facing that dilemma, which we always do, and give up this petty, stupid arguments? You know, so many, you know, it's obviously, I mean, anyone could elaborate on it, but.
So there were three things you asked Shai Baladev. One was the trying to maintain a relationship through not being absolutely honest. And another one was how does one break that illusion of being in control. And there was a third thing that you touched on that has slipped my mind, but at least looking at those two aspects. Yeah, relationships always have a certain tension in them where the ego is operating. So if the ego is operating that I need to have the upper hand, there's always going to be tension in the relationship. Or the ego tells one that one is in some way managing that relationship or controlling that relationship, then naturally there's tension. And the other person may be thinking that too. So there's always a kind of power struggle going on in relationships. If it's done where both egos are operating. So that's where the element of control or idea of control is there. The ego is one who says, I am managing this relationship. I understand how it needs to go. I know what needs to be said, and I want it to go this particular way. So one is in some sense denying freedom to another living entity to function freely, because one's ego is preventing relationship. So, and it's very easy to see how that kind of control is so artificial, because the relationship is always frustrating and there's always argument. So it's very graphic. One doesn't have to look too far. The argumentative nature of that kind of relationship where ego is operating is always there. So the necessity to subdue the ego is essential. And I mean, in this pastime, Lord Krishna subdued the ego of Kaliya. I mean, to the point that the wife saw within him that there had been a shift. I mean, you pointed out, humbleness is the desired quality. So one gets humbled when one actually sees how empty the concepts are that are held by the ego. So one has to come to a point of reality of truly taking shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna so one can subdue one's ego. and also not try and exert control over another living entity whose ego is operating too. They're responsible for trying to subdue their own ego, and one's certainly not going to subdue that person through having a greater ego that envelops their ego. It doesn't work like that. I mean, that's why you have nations where persons have to use great force and cruelty and unkindness, where ego is operating that they want to control others. So it's not the answer. The answer is the route of subduing one's own ego.
Hare Krishna Mataji. When you use the story about what happened in September 11, the people jumping out of the windows and being in awe for this extraordinary, awful event, came to my mind that the way that we assume death is different depends on our faiths and the credences we have, depending on the type of religion or the type of beliefs that we have according to our religions or beliefs. We do assume the time of death in different ways. So I don't know if we can qualify people that jumped out of the windows as ignorance. Because and I don't know what their beliefs were either, but people that come from a Judeo-Christian background don't have the same sense that the people that have read the scriptures regarding death, as we assume it, is absolutely different and is kind of a blessing. And we understand that there's another life for us later on, depending on our karma and so on. But the Judeo-Christian doesn't have it, so it's I don't know if we should call them acting in the mode of ignorance or not.
Okay. So if the Judeo-Christian belief is that the next life is a continuation of this life, but in a better circumstance, a heavenly circumstance, or a hellish one if one performs sinful activities. And you were highlighting that, our belief will be that is, further lives to live based on karma and karmic reactions, good or bad. And so you were questioning the statement that persons jumping out of a window should be termed ignorant because after all one has to examine the belief system of the person that might have propelled them to perform such an action. Well, the choice to take life into one's own hands is ignorant. So one may be in a dangerous situation where there's flames around, or a building collapsing, or rubble falling, or a escape stairway collapsing. But then to not allow however the death is supposed to come naturally, maybe rubble falls on one's head, or fire consumes one. But instead, one takes it into one's own hands.
Oh, yeah.
Then that is ignorant, because a ghostly body has got after that.
Yeah, this was, as I was saying, an extraordinary event. But normally, in a normal basis, let's say, in the way we assume death, when in a Judeo-Christian family somebody passed away, is a disaster. They mourn person for years and they want to die, and it's a sad event, and it's a different attitude. It's a different way of expressing their sorrow to their beliefs that are not in tune with what reality is, according to our Vedic beliefs. I don't know if I'm coming across with the idea.
Yeah, you're just emphasizing that there may be sorrow connected to the loss of a body, where Vedic beliefs will see it that there's no reason to mourn because after all the soul is eternal, so hence another body will be taken on. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Nagapatnis, they were distressed at the thought that their husband would be killed. So they didn't want the death of their husband. There was distress with the idea that their husband would be killed, would die, would no longer be present. So there's a natural instinct to want to preserve life. And how one views impending death, because that's part of this material creation, that time is operating. So we understand we have to go through the discomfort of the body falling apart, the organs giving in, and then one being forced to exit from that body. One understands that. If one doesn't have the understanding of that separation between the body and the soul, and sees the breakdown of the body, the physical breakdown, as the end of one's being, then naturally one's going to be in a state of great mourning. So that's the difficulty. Yeah. So yes, the belief system does certainly influence how one views death. I mean, with the Nagapatnis, it's so interesting. They actually still considered it more worthwhile that their lowly husband be saved from death, because it allows them to still have some protection in their role in their lifetime. So, yeah, generally there's a desire to prevent death, but because one's in the material creation, it's part of the horror of existence that one knows that the body's going to dwindle, and then at some point it's just going to vanish, because it can't keep going with the breakdown. Time causes the breakdown, the wearing of the joints, the wearing out of the organs, the wearing out of the senses. So this is the horror of being in the material creation. So, yeah. Well, thank you very much for your attention. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.